Jonathan Fahey is joining us. Jonathan, folks know by now, former ICE director, federal prosecutor as well, former. And let's talk a little bit. I got a lot that I want to cram into, and I feel like the hush money trial. All right, so you've got closing arguments on, I guess that's going to happen Monday. Talk about, we all talk about Michael Cohen, lack of credibility, so on and so forth. What do you expect the jury to do? What do you expect in the final arguments?
I would expect go to the final arguments first. I would expect the government, meaning the prosecutor's argument, is going to talk about all the things that are either not in dispute, meaning this payment was made and things like that. And they'll also try to talk about everything that corroborates what Michael Cohen says, like documents or just the fact that the payments happened and things like that. So that's what they're going to try to do. Is probably, my guess would be, they're going to say, don't just believe Michael Cohen. Everything he says is corroborated this way or that way. I think that ultimately fails because I think Trump's argument is going to be, if you don't believe Michael Cohen, you cannot convict him, which I think is a sensible argument because their case in so many ways rests solely on his testimony and and mostly his credibility. And as we've talked about before, this is somebody that's biased against him, stolen from him, disbarred, convicted of perjury, wants him to be convicted, stands to gain money. The list is enormous.
If you could pick a discredited witness, Michael Cohen's picture would be in the dictionary.
Yeah, he does seem like, I would love to see an example of something comparable that's ever been in a criminal case, meaning that bad of a witness. There's certainly witnesses with baggage, but he certainly takes the cake. And you couple that with hopefully the jury, and at least my experience or my view of juries is they want to see that the crime or the case is serious. And if you peel everything back, it's sort of like, okay, so they made this payment, which was not illegal to make, and they should have put it in box 1 instead of box 2 in their accounting files. It just seems utterly absurd, unimportant at the highest level, particularly, when you think of New York City and the rising crime and stuff like that. And it's like, that's what they were brought in for, 5-6 weeks of jury duty to determine whether or not somebody should have put something in a particular category in the accounting books. It's utterly absurd. So, but I do think the defense is going to hammer. If I was the defense attorney, it would be like, you would hammer him and you'd be like, would you trust him to, if he was a doctor, to do surgery on your kid, all these standard sort of cliche things. But I think they're worth thinking about. If you wouldn't trust this guy to buy a car, buy a house, give a medical advice, you shouldn't trust him to convict somebody to possibly restrain their liberty, sort of the highest possible standard in the law. And I think they'll hammer away on that. And I hope the jury does the right thing. The first part of your question, which is, I think any jury in a non-political atmosphere would acquit Donald Trump, meaning let him go in 2 seconds.
Right.
It's such an utter joke. But you're dealing with New York City, and New Yorkers love to pride themselves on how tough they are and how independent they are, but they do vote like sheep every year. So, but I hope they do have a little sense of self-respect and also respect for the justice system, that it's not a political tool, which everyone knows that's what's being used for here.
Let me ask you this, in 30 seconds or less. If Trump is found guilty, can it be appealed, and where will it go?
If he's found guilty, yes, it can be appealed. And in New York, it goes to I think it's like the New York Court of Appeals. The Supreme Court of New York is actually the trial court where he is now. So yes, he can. But the problem for Trump, meaning it won't happen before the election. He'll have to be sentenced. They'll appeal the sentence. They'll appeal it at that point. So to the extent that Trump can be vindicated, if there is political damage because of it, it can't be overcome before the election.
All right, talking about, speaking of New York, this is AOC.
And by the way, he's doing it in the South Bronx not to make a point, but because he's got court. And the man practically has the legal version of an ankle bracelet around him, and he can't leave the 5 boroughs because he always has to be in court. And so it is truly an embarrassment to him. And I am looking forward to the response of everyday Bronxites talking about how they feel about him coming to their backyard.
So the funny thing is, Jonathan, so not only is she basically admitting that the reason why this whole court thing is happening, or the impact of it, is because he has to stay in New York and not go out onto the campaign trail. But when she says, oh, I can't wait to see what people in the South Bronx think about Donald Trump. Jonathan, 25,000 people turned out. And we're talking about, all kinds of cultures, all kinds of skin colors. And Donald Trump, I mean, it was like his speech was uniting. What's your takeaway from all of this?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And it's funny with her initial comment, AOC's comment, it's like they always give up the game at some point when they try to act like it's not political, and then it slips out. But I think, could she get 25,000 people out in the South Bronx to hear her nonsense speeches? Of course not. Donald Trump and maybe some, a few rock stars and, professional sporting events are the only people that can get that type of crowd anywhere. And he goes into probably, I don't know what they vote, percentage Democrat, but it's probably 90+%. And he could go in there and talk to them and relate to them. And can you imagine Joe Biden going into a heavily red state?
No.
It's just laughable. He couldn't even draw, they have to hire people or bring in union people to go to his events because no one even wants to see him. But I think the best part about this for Donald Trump, it shows people, even if he doesn't convert everyone in the Bronx, it shows everyone that he's trying to be the president for everyone. He's not, and Joe Biden has already written off half the country. He doesn't just have political opponents. He treats everyone that, in the red states or conservatives or anything else as enemies. He speaks more harshly about his political opponents than he does about Hamas. It's truly amazing. And Trump, everyone likes to see it, even when there are people that you don't vote for. You like the fact that they do want to try to get your vote and appeal to you. And he is telling them, hey, vote for me and your lives will be better. And they were better when I was president before. And that's a pretty good message. And it's hard to really, refute that message. So, Biden has, just reduced to, name call, the standard cynical.
Oh, it's name calling. Yeah, name calling, race baiting. I've got some.
Yeah, they're dying for another racial incident that they could try to get people fired up about and cause division. It's so cynical.
Jonathan, I want to play you this piece of audio from Donald Trump.
It doesn't matter whether you're black or brown or white or whatever the hell color you are. It doesn't matter. We are all Americans, and we're going to pull together as Americans.
He had rappers out there. You had people that were converted from. Listen to this. Joe Biden needs seat fillers for his events, and you've got Donald Trump. 25,000 people is what the Daily Mail is reporting. And so is it? I said this earlier today. You want to look at, they always say that Donald Trump is so divisive. It's actually, Donald Trump could be the great uniter.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And the funny thing is sort of, back on that theme is Donald Trump likes people. He likes New Yorkers. They always want to say all of these things about hatred and all these things, but that's what they're doing. Donald Trump could go in anywhere. Remember that, the Chick-fil-A thing probably a month or so ago. And it's like he could go in anywhere. People gravitate to him. He relates to them. He likes them. And he is rooting for America. And he is rooting for African Americans to do better. And it's hard to say that the Democratic Party really wants African Americans to do better because they seem like their move is hoping they do poorly and then just use that as a way to blame Republicans and keep them voting for them. There's nothing about Biden that makes you think he wants you and your family to do better. All of his things are the most, again, so cynical. Like you look at the student loan buyout, whatever, and it's like, it not only everyone sees it's so transparently cynical and political, but also it just shows a bleakness of the way he views the future. Is like, if you borrowed money to go to school, your future is so dim that the government has to bail you out of this catastrophic mistake you made to go to school. And it's still not a particularly uplifting message. And they congratulate people for not paying their loans, which is amazing too. But, you look at Trump and the speech yesterday, and then you look at Biden with that, I think the president of Kenya yesterday, and he had to mumble through note cards, and then, there's no energy. He doesn't even seem to know what he's saying. He's just mumbling things that people wrote for him, and it's just absolutely pathetic. If anyone looked at that objectively and say, could this guy be the leader, or could this guy even hold even the lowest level job in any domain? I don't think he could, and that's a serious comment. It's not just a political type of comment. He really can't do anything, and it's a daily embarrassment when they put him out there. And you put that again juxtaposed with Donald Trump can fire up anyone, cares about the country, is trying to not only unite people, but he actually wants us all to be more prosperous in 4 years. He doesn't want only some of us to succeed. He's happy if we all succeed, which I think is a great message. And you look at Reagan, and there are a lot of people have issues with Clinton, but he was very positive and did seem to be rooting for Americans, and I think it does resonate.
Well, it's interesting too because I did earlier juxtapose Trump audio and
as I said, the United States has long championed
and Biden audio
financial institutions that provide low-cost.
My God. And this is reading from notes. I mean, he literally, Jonathan, I know you know this, he had a piece of paper right in front of him, and he's just reading it, and it's just like...
New initiative that provides...
Good Lord, man. So...
Right. I would love it if somebody just asked him after that answer, say, could you explain what you just read? And he wouldn't even know what he read, and everyone knows that. And the media treats him like a baby, and it's just like... he even when the media asks him questions, they are so mild compared to what Trump or any normal person would get in any area, actually.
Oh, yes. All right. I've only got 30 seconds left. So we've got, 4 months, 5 months, whatever it is, till November. We see where the polling is. We see that Donald Trump is ahead in a lot of the battleground states, or it's really close. Some are saying general election, neck and neck, but I just care about the battleground states. At this moment in time, the Friday before Memorial Day, in 30 seconds, where do you see this campaign going, and how big of a deal is it that, Donald Trump now has the vote of Nikki Haley?
I think that's a huge deal, and I think everyone probably knew it was coming, but it still makes a difference because she does appeal, I think, to sort of that middle of the road, maybe the women voter, suburban type. I think that's probably her strongest thing that Donald Trump is not quite as strong in. So I think that helps. I think if the campaign is on the issues, Donald Trump should win handedly. And if this New York case works out in his favor, I think he's on the road to victory in November.
All right, Jonathan, as always, thank you very much. Jonathan Fahey with us on Super Talk 99.7 at WTN. Jonathan, have a great weekend.